Okay, next up we have Kiba Gateaux, from a protocol developer from Molecule, and he will be discussing accelerating science with on-chain liquidity and incentives.
Hello, how is everyone? So this is a kind of a mouthful. I'll be explaining over the course of the talk what all of these words mean. But I think the main point I want to take away from this is that we are really at a Molecule and Bio.xyz kind of talking about a lot of things that you guys have been discussing over the course of the day, which is intellectual property and financialization and liquidity within the DeSci ecosystem. And that's exactly what we're building at Bio. So I'm really interested to hear about your guys' feedback and talk to you guys about what you think about the protocol, because we're kind of designing it for a lot of the problems that you guys have demonstrated today. So Bio.xyz, as has been mentioned over the course of the day in the last talk, is an accelerator for different bio-DAOs within the DeSci ecosystem, helping them figure out what kind of science to invest into, helping the scientists kind of integrate with the crypto ecosystem, and then helping them actually like start the startups, develop products, and things like that. And so Bio, we're moving away from this kind of more formal accelerator program into an on-chain smart contract-based protocol that is this liquidity protocol for helping the DeSci DAOs with their token economics. Cool. Boom. Boom. There we go. Cool. So yeah, Bio and Molecule, our main goal is to change how we're investing into early stage science. So a lot of people, when they think about incentives, they think about a payment, like we want you to do something, so we'll just pay to do that, and they think of that as like the main incentive mechanism that's available. But what I really find interesting about Molecule and why I went to go work there is because by tokenizing intellectual property, they're creating this new incentive structure for people to invest into early stage science or to fund early stage science by giving people a profit motive. So you don't necessarily have to pay people to invest into the science. The investing into the science itself is the incentive, right? And by doing this on-chain with tokens, we have this open source model where anyone can create the intellectual property and tokenize it and also invest into it. So we're opening up the possibilities of what science gets funded and who can fund that science, which also who can fund science changes what types of things get funded. Oops, wrong way. So I won't go into this because you guys did a very good job of explaining this over the course of the day, but intellectual property has a lot of problems in the traditional world. It's very static. It's hard to know who owns what, or it's hard to do things with it. If someone that owns IP doesn't want to license it to you, it's hard to know if it's available for license and how to actually engage with them, things like that. And they're very illiquid because of this. It's hard to actually engage in deals and license it and things like that. And then another kind of important part with the traditional IP world is like the financial models that you have also affect the actual products or companies that get started. So this is an example for kind of software and VCs, but there is some analogy to biotech. I don't know exactly what, I'm new to the biotech world, but with software as a service models, VCs saw this like very scalable thing, and they all want like an 1000x. They want something that can just be reproduced automatically, digitally, and then that affected what types of startups and companies got funded because the VCs wanted this like one specific model, and so that's why you get dog walking applications when we really don't need 10,000 dog walking applications that's super scalable, but that's the type of investment that the investors wanted, so that's the type of thing that got the money. And so why having intellectual property be tokenized and available on chain for anyone to invest into is because now we can change what actual science gets funded and what companies then get funded. So we're revolutionizing how intellectual property works and what kind of science now gets created. And we're creating permissionless science with Bio.xyz. So right now it's still a very slow and cumbersome process to do a biotech startup in general and also do a crypto startup. And so doing biotech and crypto at the same time is obviously super difficult. And so by creating this open source protocol and creating incentives and liquidity around it, we are trying to make it more permissionless so that anyone can participate in this economy. So IP NFTs, I also won't go into this because you guys did a great job earlier, but the basics are, it's this token that's on chain that you can transfer, you can invest into it, you can do any type of like smart contract based applications and business logic. And so this is kind of like the core building block for the DeSci ecosystem and then also for Bio.xyz. This is what all the bio DAOs that we are accelerating are using as their kind of funding model. And so why IPTs are great is because they basically open source collaboration. Because they're on chain and they're permissionless and they're programmable, anyone can interact with them. me as a developer, I can, even if I didn't work at Molecule, I could build some application for VitaDAO, just a smart contract, and anyone could automatically start interacting with that. I could create my own incentive structures if I wanted to. I could have it so that any scientist could deposit their IPTs and get some reward for me to then like utilize it and to license it from them, or I could pay people to allow me to access the data from the IPTs and things like that without anyone else needing to kind of be involved. So we're opening up the playing field for what's possible and who can interact. And then the value is still flowing back to the token model and to the investors into that token. So what do we actually mean by IPTs? I don't think anyone actually mentioned a specific use case today. So VitaFast was the first ever IPT that was launched last year, and it was oversubscribed by, I think it was 1,600%. Do we have that number there? 1,700%, yeah. And so they had about $500,000 of investors that wanted to engage with the token sale, which was oversubscribed. And it has become like, yeah, the most successful use case for IPTs and a model for how we see these bio-DAOs and the on-chain science economy developing over time. And so kind of like the trajectory of what happened with VitaFast was there was like this initial auction, which was oversubscribed like we showed, and then they immediately put it onto a liquidity pool, and then there's this kind of price discovery phase where other people that weren't Vita token holders that couldn't directly engage with the primary auction now tried to buy in on the secondary market through Uniswap, and then as the project kept developing, as more research kept going through the science and the science and research process, more people started to see the project and started investing, and then the price went up. And so you can kind of see this is like the stage of on-chain science and how people are interacting with it over their lifetime. And so we want more of this. So at Bio.xyz, we've started 6 DAOs. You get 7 if we include Cerebrum, which I don't think is on here. Yeah, Cerebrum is part of cohort 2, so they're not listed. But we are basically starting these new bio DAOs so we can bring more IPTs on chain, more science on chain, and get more investment dollars to allow more acceleration. This exact slide has already been presented, so I won't go into it. But basically, you can see that this is like the funding model and the sustainability model for these bio-DAOs. They invest into these IPTs, and then there's research that happens. Ideally, they're monetizing this IP, and then those proceeds go back to the DAO so they can invest into more research. And so Bio has been pretty successful with this model so far. We've started 6 DAOs like we just showed. The total market cap of all these DAOs is about $100 million currently. Prices have gone down. And all the DAOs have raised about $10 million in total from investors through both their primary initial raises and then follow-on OTC rounds. And we've been featured in things like Nature, Stanford Law Review. We've got investment from like Pfizer and Novartis, or like more traditional pharma companies, and Balaji, Brian Armstrong, and these other prominent crypto thought leaders have also become interested in DeSci and are becoming more involved. CZ, the founder of Binance, his new startup is specifically focused on DeSci. And so we're seeing the DeSci ecosystem having gone from basically nothing 5 years ago to now being this industry on its own that has like a pretty substantial market value. But again, yeah, it's still super hard. A lot of these DAOs are still struggling to actually invest into the science, monetize the science, and kind of create that sustainability loop. And so with Bio.xyz, we're looking to kind of kickstart this process again. So not just starting the DAOs, but then also helping the DAOs continue and become more successful over their lifetime. So we've created this BioDAO Bible, which kind of goes over everything you need to create a BioDAO. So it's things like branding and design. We provide these services to all the DAOs. Legal engineering. So the Swiss Association was actually one of the things that convinced me to go work at Molecule. I read all the legal contracts that they engage with the BioDAOs with, and I thought they were really solid. And so that was what interested me in the company. And then, yeah, things like token economics, which is my particular role, is helping with like DeFi, treasury management, protocol design, things like that. Helping them actually like use the Molecule protocol to mint their IP NFT so they can get the investment dollars and things like that. So we really help them across a broad spectrum of things. And this is like the kind of original accelerator program. And now we're extending this to now doing on-chain liquidity and more incentive mechanisms for people to use their products and protocols. So yeah, why are we doing all this? So first off, we want to accelerate human progress and economic innovation, basically allowing anyone to do anything that they want, allowing more science to flourish, more intelligence, more knowledge being produced. And we also want to decentralize that process, so not just like who's able to do it, but then how it's stored, making sure that it has longevity and people can access this research over time, it doesn't get siloed, and making sure that there's someone that's working on every disease, making sure that there is no more human suffering, essentially. So making sure that that's operationally, like logistically feasible, and then also like financially feasible, making sure that the people have the money to go do this research and cure these diseases. But there's still a lot of problems in DeSci today. So the main one that we're targeting with bio, and has been mentioned a lot today, not just within DeSci, but generally with intellectual property, is liquidity. So a lot of the bio DAOs, like even VitaDAO, which is the most successful, they're fairly low liquidity. You can only do tens of thousands of dollars of purchases without there being significant price impact. And so this severely affects how many investors can join the space, because unless you're there at the very beginning, then you can't buy in, and there's no new dollars that can join. You're just stuck with the money that you initially raised with to invest into science, and hopefully that science kicks off, but they don't really have an ability to continuously fundraise. And then another issue is that a lot of crypto investors don't understand biotech. Biotech is its own industry. There's a lot of things like just understanding the science to know what is a good investment is very difficult. And so we're trying to help crypto investors understand what biotech is and kind of what the value proposition is, and then also helping the biotech investors understand how crypto works and what the value system of crypto is. Okay. And there's also a lack of products and IP monetization from the DAOs. So they've launched IPTs and IP NFTs, but the actual research behind those like protocols and tokens hasn't actually been turned into a kind of a sustainable model for them to do. So this on the right is an example from HairDAO, who launched the shampoo product, which is like the first product by one of the bio DAOs. And yeah, it's to help people with their hair. Customer? No. And Cerebrum DAO is also launching a couple products, I think, soon. So there has been some progress along this, but we think there could be a lot more. And so with bio, we're creating a liquidity protocol for accelerating this on-chain science, the science itself, and then also the productization of it. And so we're calling this the bio acceleration movement, which is kind of combining the crypto and crypto economic incentives, biotech and the research industry, and then also artificial intelligence in terms of helping us do more research. And then the kind of intersection of all of this is the bio acceleration movement. And so kind of the first stage of how bio is just addressing these problems is what we're calling the biogenesis swap, which will be taking place soon. And this is kind of like the first step in bio to XYZ becoming the meta governance and liquidity layer. So basically we'll be issuing the bio token in exchange for other DeSci tokens. So there'll be 8 tokens that are eligible to be traded in for bio during the Genesis event, which are like VitaDAO, Cerebrum DAO, CryoDAO, Athena DAO, and then also a research coin, which isn't part of Bio to XYZ, the accelerator program, but we're incorporating them into our ecosystem because we see a lot of alignment there. And then we'll be using all of these tokens that we get through the Genesis swap to then provide liquidity for the bio DAOs. And we'll be doing this specifically in the bio token. So instead of pairing it with ETH, which has a very high cost of capital, and right now the DAOs are actually providing a lot of their own liquidity, which is actually unusual for DAOs in general, but most DeSci DAOs are doing it, which is a good thing actually. But that also means that the DAOs have a lot of ETH in the treasury that's locked up in liquidity that they can't actually use to fund science. So we're looking to solve that by us as bio providing liquidity instead of the bio DAOs, and then also providing the liquidity based in the bio token instead of ETH, which has a much lower cost of capital for us, so we can provide a lot more liquidity, a lot cheaper, which allows it to be deeper liquidity, which means more trading, more investors can come in, and then also the bio can earn more fees from the additional volume. So it's kind of all around great for everyone. It's great for the bio DAOs, it's great for bio, and it's also great for investors. And then ideally we'll be using this funding and the revenue from the liquidity to then also provide more follow-on funding to the bio DAOs as time goes on. And then the second step in kind of addressing these issues is what we call bioac incentives. And so these are different rewards that we're giving to BioDAOs and then also to people within the DeSci ecosystem for participating in the BioAct movement. And so these could be things like minting IPTs that achieve a certain market value. So VitaDAO, we have a retroactive aspect to this because some DAOs have already achieved these things. So VitaDAO with their VitaFast token, it had a $5 million market cap, and that's like the first tier of the research incentive program. And so VitaDAO gets an airdrop of the Bio token for having achieved this science that the market has said was valuable. And so now that creates incentives for DAOs to invest into more science and mint more of it on-chain and create more liquidity for that. So then there's more funding that goes into the science, and then also there's more on-chain activity for us to kind of like analyze the ecosystem, what people actually think is valuable in terms of from a scientific perspective, and then we as Bio, the accelerator that's kind of above all these DAOs, we can also better evaluate who's actually investing into the right science, so we know who we should be providing liquidity for and directing capital to. And there's also BioAct incentives for things like pop-up cities, where a lot of the, like Zuzulu and Vitalia, which happened this year and last year, which were really big in catalyzing the community to get more involved into DeSci, and then also actual practically allowing people to test a lot of the products that people have been creating in the DeSci space. So it's like nootropics, or there's cell therapies, gene therapies, and so we're actually giving incentives to people and paying people for experimenting with these biotech technologies. And yeah, so this just got released or approved by the Bio governance last week, I believe. So this is fairly new, and we're just rolling it out. But it's a really important step for us in terms of the Bio protocol to be this liquidity and incentive layer for the DeSci ecosystem to help the Bio DAOs have these milestones that they have like very clear achievements where they will get more funding as they progress, and then also for the DeSci ecosystem to, and like investors specifically, to better understand what they should be looking for for the Bio DAOs to know like what are the good metrics. And so, yeah, we started with the Bio kind of spin-out process from Molecule a couple months ago. I was hired to kind of like help with that process. And so we started with an airdrop, which some people in this room might be eligible to claim. So if you ever held a DeSci token like VitaDAO, if you engage in any of the Discords or Twitter, and yeah, kind of various other things that you would expect an airdrop for, you should go to claim.bio.xyz and see if you have the airdrop. And then we are preparing for the next step, which is the Genesis swap. And that's going to be, where we emit the Bio token in exchange for all the different DeSci tokens to seed the Bio treasury and then to seed liquidity. And then after we do the Genesis swap, we'll have the biopharmacy, which is kind of like the DeFi interface, or like the DeFi x DeSci, where we'll be able to do like liquidity mining, staking, governance, and then that's where the Bio protocol will be, where you can then start like curating and investing into the new Bio DAOs in our future cohorts. So it'll become like, this kind of hub for the financial DeSci ecosystem. So yeah, you can follow me as I build the Bio protocol. I put Dune up there first because I've been working on some dashboards that kind of show an overview of the DeSci ecosystem. So showing kind of like the market cap, the overall volume, kind of how the different DAOs are evolving over time, and how many IPTs exist, the value of those IPTs, things like that. And then I mostly post like insights and memes. I post a lot of memes on Farcaster. And so if you're interested in kind of like seeing anything that's up to date, you can follow me on these platforms. And also feel free to ask me questions. I'm usually pretty responsive. And then you can join the Bio Discord, where again you can ask us a bunch of questions, and we have like a growing community that's engaging with the different Bio DAOs and also with the protocol and the token. And then if you're interested in applying to cohort 2 with the Bio DAO idea, you can submit your application there. Cerebrum DAO is actually part of cohort 2. They kind of front ran it, which is why I really like them. They're just like, we're going, but applications are still open, and we're really excited to get more DAOs involved. And that's it. Thank you guys.
Give it up for Kiba. Awesome. So we do have a couple minutes for some questions. And everybody, please stick around after the questions. We are going to take a big group picture. Hang out after this. Any questions? Feel free to raise your hand.
So thank you much for your presentations. And I found it really interesting. But I have one question. And So you mentioned about those way to get monies from public, but how about like, so you mentioned about the community of the DAOs, so community of the researchers. So what about those interactions between researchers? Sometimes I have like cool ideas, but selling data or buying something.
Yeah. So that falls more in the realm of the bio DAOs.
Yes.
So like, yeah, Vita DAO or Cerebrum DAO, Athena DAO, they're the ones that engage directly with the researchers. They figure out which application should be accepted, who should get funded, developing that IP, then marketing and productizing that IP. So like the actual science happens in the bio DAOs, and then bio is kind of like this meta layer on top that's doing the financial and liquidity layer, helping the DAOs get the money so they can actually then engage with the scientists. Does that
So
answer you?
I found they are the investors or the like organizers rather than researchers itself.
With bio, yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how about the future expectations?
The future what?
Future expectations for like the community for the researchers.
Uh,
Is there any possibility to exchange the data or results or something like there is a publishing related DAOs, you know? So how about those?
Yeah. So again, there'll be like I would say lower level than bio to XYZ. So we're just focused on kind of like funding, and then anyone that's dealing with data or patients or the actual research itself would be like one of the bio DAOs that we help start and incubate, but that wouldn't be our direct responsibility. So if someone wants to publish a paper, for example, yeah, like Vita DAO has the Vitalist, or they have some research paper that they collect different papers from their community, and then they publish it themselves. So yeah, that would be on them, not us, I would say.
Okay, thank you.